Hi, Randall with Zen Float Co.
And I'm Mo.
How's everybody doing today?
We're doing well. Give us some shout outs, ask some questions.
Please.
We're live, so
Don't make us feel lonely.
yeah.
So today, well, Mo's going to introduce the video here in a second, but real quickly, I wanted to just give, for everybody who's purchased a tank, we want to just give a quick update on delivery. So we've received all the tanks in the in our warehouse here, and we've almost done taking all the inventory and everything. So we're going to start shipping out probably the beginning of next week. So those of you that have a tank, start looking at your email for tracking numbers because they're on their way. So good news.
Yep, so be sure to check your emails. That's where everything's going to be going through, and get pumped because they're going to be on their way soon.
Heck yeah, thanks for everybody's support during this Kickstarter and helping us bring this tank to reality.
Yeah.
They're here, and we can't wait to hear your floating stories, so start getting ready.
We're super excited. So today we're on the live. We're going to talk about what to do before you float when you're floating at home, and a lot of these are applicable to floating at a spa as well. So first we'll cover a few hours before you float, and then immediately before you float, what you should do to just kind of get ready, prep yourself, and have an amazing float. So a few hours before you float, there are a few things you want to pay attention to. The first one would make sure you eat at least 1 hour before you get into a float tank. If you eat sooner than that, sometimes you can feel your food digesting, or like your stomach will be grumbling, which can wake you up and take you out of a meditative state, and it can just be distracting. So make sure you're just giving yourself ample time from when you eat to when you get into a float tank.
Yeah, and I guess along with that note is drinking fluids, before a float. You have to know yourself. If you can drink fluids and not need to go to the bathroom for a couple hours, then fine, but most of us can't. So just so you don't get woken up out of your meditation because you have to pee, just make sure you go to the bathroom before your float.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to pee in your float tank. That would be a mess.
I mean, it is just, if you have one of our tanks and you're the only one floating in it and that's what you want to do, then that's fine, but probably don't do that.
Don't tell us about it anyways. So, in addition to food and drink, just be aware of any stimulants or depressants you're putting into your body. A lot of people, coffee and tea, for example, they can make some people really jittery, but a lot of people will float to help with medication. So if they're on Adderall or pain medicine, Xanax, Valium, any antidepressants or anti-anxieties, if you're taking those or uppers before you get into a float tank, it can really affect your float. Stimulants, can make you jittery or anxious, especially if you're lying there, if you're floating, and depressants can make you really drowsy in that situation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and depressants, could be dangerous, since it does is it suppresses your central nervous system, which controls your breathing. And so, that could just be dangerous. Plus, it's just, you're not going to be meditating. You're going to be drunk or, on a chemical that's not allowing you to meditate. So, especially Adderall and coffee and things, those are definitely going to make it very difficult to get into meditation states in the tank. So, so no chemicals if you can before floating.
Yeah, just be conscious about when you're taking them and when you're going to float. And that's also one benefit of having a tank at your home. You don't have to schedule a time, so you can wake up as soon as you wake up before you've eaten or drink anything. You can hop in your float tank, or if you take medication in the morning or drink coffee in the morning, then you have the availability to float at night. So just making sure you're scheduling floats around when you have to take your medication.
Or drink coffee.
Yeah. And then Randall already mentioned drinking water. So right before you float, there's a few things you want to do. The first one is definitely shower. You want to rinse all the lotions and oils off your skin, remove any dead hair, any dirt, skin cells, and it's just going to help keep your tank cleaner, the water cleaner, so you'll go through less hydrogen peroxide, your filtration system will have to work less, it'll just preserve your water longer. And make sure that when you're showering before you float, you don't use soap, because the soap can stay on your skin and then be brought into your tank. So you're just rinsing everything off of you.
I'm sure anybody can think of this when you've taken a bath, which I love to do. Even, you know, if you're clean when you get in the bath, but you use soap, you notice it's like super milky or dirty water. You know, that's mainly from the soap. That's what you're leaving in your tank. And this was a conversation on our, you know, Zen Float family group page a couple weeks ago, I think. And, you know, obviously the goal of a pre-float shower without soap is to get, one of the things is to get oil off your body. And obviously soap's going to do a better job at that, you know, but we're not trying to get all the oil off. You know, ultimately if you use soap, you're going to leave more soap than you would have left oil if you just wouldn't have taken a shower. So that's why. It's not because of anything other than your water, I guess, cleanliness and how long you can keep that water solution. Like we tell everybody, you'll have that water solution for up to 2 years before you need to change it. And no soap pre-float showers are going to be one of the biggest contributors to keeping your water that long. So it's all about just the tank, you know, the water purity in your tank. That's why we're doing it, not any other reason. So use soap after, you know, when you're after shower, but before, don't.
Yeah.
And you can use like a rag or something if you really want to scrub the oil off. You can get a rag and do it, not soap.
Yeah. So Randall touched on this before, but make sure you go to the bathroom before you get in your float tank, like immediately. Oftentimes when you touch warm water, if you're getting into a bath, a hot tub, a pool, it makes you have to pee. So just make sure go before you float, and then it won't disrupt your floating or your meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and so there's plenty of, as far as when you get in and you start floating, you know, it's, you know, for some people especially, it can be automatic to get into those float states, but even in the tank, you do have to do, you know, breathing exercises or body scanning, which breathing exercises, all you're doing is you're just taking big, long, deep breaths, and you're like trying to follow one point of air all the way down into your bottom of your lungs, feel it going down your esophagus, your throat, your tongue, you know, feel it coming back out, you know, in all those same places. And that just really sensitizes your brain to focusing on those feelings, which gets you out of the, you know, past or future thoughts that we have and brings you into the present, which is how you start meditating. So do you want to explain body scanning? I think you explained that one better.
yeah, so body scanning is another way to just kind of ground yourself and calm yourself down so you're more relaxed entering a float tank. And basically what you do is you start at your toes or your feet, and you tense up your toes, relax them, move to your foot, tense up your foot, relax it, go to your heel, ankle, calf, knees, quads. You just move all the way up your body, tensing and relaxing it, and it just helps get out any jitters. If you're anxious, it can help release it, just loosens up your body. And on top of that, it can point out any especially tense areas that maybe you want to focus on relaxing during your float. But it's just a great way to ground down, relax your body physically before you get into a float tank so you can more easily access the meditative state.
Yeah, that's an awesome explanation. So, and some people do this, they don't just start in their tank, they'll start in their pre-float shower, you know, doing the breathing exercises and body scanning. Some people will do, you know, especially in the tank, they'll be able to do this because it's much bigger, but some yoga poses in there, you know, before they get started. I know Shane actually sits in his yoga position, you know, Indian style basically, but for a few minutes before he actually lays down and starts floating. So, anyhow, so it can start in your shower, you know, and in the tank as well.
Some people, I am like this as well, I have a really hard time relaxing in a float session. It takes me about 20 minutes before I'm finally calm. So starting it before I even enter the tank makes a huge difference on getting into that meditative state and getting into a deeper meditation. So these are just some tips.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a couple other good ones here, you know, letting go of expectations, you know, especially if you're new to floating. Or sometimes, like for me, I fell in love with floating after my very first float. You know, I got into that meditative state. But I have experience with meditation, you know, some people don't. So, so just letting go of expectations will help you start to get the benefits of floating. I've never met anybody that has gone floating at least 3 or 4 times that has said they didn't like it. I've had people tell me they didn't like it after 1 or 2 floats, but if they've gone 3 or 4 times, everybody ends up loving it. So just don't judge your, especially first or second float. You got to go a few times to release the anxiety of being in an enclosed tank and so forth, and just getting used to it. So I think that's probably what you meant by letting go of expectations, right?
Yeah, and on top of that, everyone talks about how floating is going to be this huge, life-changing, incredible experience, and you're going to reach this really deep meditative state. You're going to have your mind blown, like it's just going to be insane. And it's not always like that. Sometimes you go into a float tank and it's really difficult to shut your mind off, and maybe you don't meditate. Maybe that day you end up problem solving, or maybe it's just physically relaxing more than getting into a meditation. And that's even after years of floating. It's different every time. So just not expecting to reach a super deep meditative state every single time, or not expecting anything from your floats, because it's going to be a little different each time you go into it. Like, you'll get something different out of it. So just keeping that in mind too, with expectations of how your float's going to go.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's, floating is mind-blowing. It is life-changing.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make it sound like it wasn't.
No, you weren't.
It's great, but...
Your explanation is perfect. It's just that floating is a practice. It's not something, like, you're not going to go do one float session and change your life. It's going to be something that you need to do all the time for the rest of your life, and your life will change if you do that for the better. But it's a practice. It's going to take work, and you're going to learn, as you float, what makes you tick in the tank, and it's just going to be a process, so just know that.
Yeah. And then with kind of letting go of expectations, a fun thing to do before you get into a tank is set an intention. And so maybe this time you want to get into a deep meditative state, or you want a meditation. Sometimes maybe you want to problem solve. Maybe you go in with a question or with something you're seeking or searching for. And so just setting an intention of what you want out of that float. Maybe it's reducing pain, physically relaxing, healing an injury, or anything along those lines. So just kind of thinking about what you hope to get without, it's kind of contradictory, what you hope to get without having too much set expectation on it.
Yeah, well, intentions and expectations are different, but, intentions... maybe you have a project at work you're stuck on, or you set a goal at the gym or at work, or, just different, it's good for motivation, basically, so you can think of what you'd like to get out of your float before you start floating, and, you'll be surprised what your mind does for you in there, so that's a really good point. And then, look at floating as a self-care ritual, couple of, I guess, house cleaning items. So with our tanks, we send you a scum bug, which you throw it in your tank. It's a sponge that sucks the oil off the top of the water that your body leaves in there. So that just floats around. If you don't take it out, it's going to bump into you and knock you out of your float session. So take the scum bug out when you start floating, throw it back in when you're done. Turn off the pump. The pump in our tank makes a little bit of noise. It's very quiet, actually. You can't hear it when you're outside of the tank, but when you're in the tank, you definitely can.
And more than noise is it just moves the water around. So if you're trying to lay in there, you're going to start like bumping into the wall because the water's flowing. Yeah.
And then also the only powered component that we have that is in the water is the pump. So just for safety reasons, unplug the electricity from the pump.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're not going to get electrocuted if you don't, but just to be safe, definitely unplug it. So it eliminates the sound, stops the water from flowing, and just takes the electricity out of the water.
Yes. And then on top of that, so turn off the filtration system, the pump and UV light, leave the heating pads on. This will keep the water warm throughout the entirety of your float. We've had people take it off or turn the heating pads off, and then maybe they go float for 3 hours and the water starts to get a little cooler, which it won't get super cold. It's not going to lose heat that fast, but it will be noticeable when you're floating. So just keep the heater pads running, and they're under the tank, so you don't have to worry about any electricity flowing through or anything like that. It's not near touching the water at all. So leave those on, but everything else goes off.
Yep, and then a couple of other things. I would set, have your robe and towel or hand towel just right near the tank, if you can. One of the big things that you don't want to do, and experienced floaters know this, but don't touch your eyes after you get your hands in the water. That's why if you do, having a spray bottle or towels next to the tank just so you can it'll burn really bad if you do that. So, so that's a good reason to have the towel robe, water bottles near the tank, but also just in case you want to take a drink of water to dry off, before you walk to your shower, so you're not dragging salt all over the house and so forth. So just have everything you need to get out of the tank there.
Yeah.
Once you're there.
There and ready to go. And on our new tanks, what's really cool is we have D-rings on the inside. So you can hang a little hand towel or hang a spray bottle on the inside of your tank so you don't have to get out if you do accidentally get water in your eyes or near your mouth or anything like that. And then the last thing to get ready, which this is optional, but setting an alarm. And what we've done is we have float headphones that are waterproof. They have a 9-foot cord. So we'll wear those instead of earplugs and then set our alarm on our phone for 1 to 2 hours or however long we want to float. And then that'll just wake us up when we've reached that time limit. So you don't have to do that, but it's another last thing to think about how long you want to float. Mm-hmm. I've meant to float for an hour before, forgot it, and was in there for a few hours. So
that can very easily happen.
Yeah, you lose track of time. So just be conscious of that when you're prepping.
Yeah, if you're not using our underwater headphones to set an alarm and you're just using earplugs, which is important, everybody should use earplugs. Some people don't. I think they're nuts for doing that. But getting that salt in your ears, it'll just affect you for the rest of the day. And that stuff can stay in there for longer than a day, actually. So just wear earplugs. But if you don't have the headphones, what I would suggest is just setting an alarm, like turn your phone on Do Not Disturb, set the alarm, and just lean it against the tank, because when it starts vibrating, it'll wake you up.
Yeah, the vibration will wake you up. You probably won't hear the sound, even if it's on as loud as it can go. So, yeah, look for the vibration, not sound.
And then along with the headphones, though, the nice thing about having those is you can do our guided meditation. We have a 30-minute guided meditation. Like Mo said, it takes most of us a little bit of time to get relaxed in the tank. And so doing a 30-minute guided meditation really helps me for the first 30 minutes. And then basically, I can go for the next hour or two with being in that state. So, or you can do, audio books if you're trying to learn a language or whatever, music, just the headphones are amazing.
Yeah, and so then last thing, if you're floating in our tank or tent, just knock the condensation. Condensation builds up, and so they are pyramid shaped, so the idea is that the water will drip down the sides and back into the water. It won't drip on you, but every now and then drips can fall on you, and it can take you out of a meditative state if you're floating. So just before you get in, walk around the tank, knock the walls a little bit just to get any loose drops off. And
yeah, like literally just pound the sidewalls of our tank at least, and just walk around. It'll knock most of the condensation off. If you have the tank, our new tank, I would suggest you get a squeegee, because the sidewalls are hard, and so you can just squeegee the water off really easy. Or if you don't want to do that, then a hand towel will get all the water off too. Either way, the condensation is going to drip down the sidewalls. That's why we designed our tank the way it is. But the drips happen in any tank, and so with ours they do too. So it's just better to get longer drip-free floats if you just get the water off the sidewalls first.
Yep. So I think that's about all we have for what to do to get ready for your float. If you have any other ideas or suggestions, we would love to hear it, so just comment. And then if you have any questions...
Anybody, Mason? Anybody talking to us?
Yeah, so we have a few. So Drew and Terry both said hello, and then Terry said Epsom salt gets everywhere.
Yes. The Epsom salt does get everywhere, so that's why we were saying keep a robe or a towel right outside your tank so that you can just wipe off quickly before you go to your shower.
Yeah, we put on the tank, we put a step pad out so
Yeah.
you can dry off on that step pad so you're not dragging salt everywhere, and it'll just be right there on the tank. And the tent, which is the one I still use, I actually went to Home Depot and bought a big rubber mat that sticks out from the front of my tank, and that's where I dry off, because I have been like damp and walked around my house, and after I got out of the shower I could see my trail of salt
Yeah.
all the way to my shower. So it's important to dry off all the way before you start walking to your shower.
Yes.
Was there anything else?
Okay. Well, keep commenting. We'll be monitoring this video, so we always love to hear suggestions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let us know if anybody has any ideas of any FB Lives you'd like us to do, any topics or subjects, just let us know. But
Yep.
Mo's really good at staying on top of the comments, so
Yes.
ask questions, leave comments, tell me I'm awesome and Mo's so
No.
on these lives. But
I'm the
I'm just
best.
kidding. She's better. She's way better than me.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll see you next Wednesday at 4:30 Mountain Time.
Laters.
Bye.